Final item of business is a members' business debate on motion 22771 in the name of Shona Robertson on changing miscarriage care. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put. Can I ask those members who wish to speak in the debate to press their request to speak buttons now? And I call on Shona Robertson to open the debate. Ms Robertson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer, and thanks also to my colleagues across the Chamber for their support in helping to bring this important, timely and much-needed debate to Parliament. For too long, too many women have had to suffer the devastating impact that miscarriage can have on them alone and confused, without the opportunity, the safe space to talk openly and honestly and to come to terms with its effects on them. And if through today's debate we can, as a society, help find a place to talk about miscarriage, then we can be proud of that. In bringing forward the campaign Changing Miscarriage Care, I must thank so many for their support and expertise in helping shape and support it. Tommy's, the largest charity funding research into the causes of miscarriage, stillbirth and premature birth, and in particular Jane Bruin, who has led the charity for over 20 years and has grown it to fund 5 world-leading pregnancy research centres in the UK, including a National Miscarriage Research Centre and Pregnancy Research Centre based in Edinburgh, and provides pregnancy information to over 2 million people each month. The Miscarriage Association for the pin badges today, and which recognises the Baby Loss Awareness Campaign, which works with over 60 charities highlighting the issues surrounding baby loss. Each year, Baby Loss Awareness Week takes place around now and gives those affected by baby loss the opportunity to raise awareness about pregnancy and baby loss and drive improvements in the bereavement care and support available for those affected. This year, the week will focus on the isolation many people experience after baby loss. Women, partners, other family members and friends. The effect of social distancing from COVID-19 has had a major impact on access to care and support and has complicated grief and responses to pregnancy and baby loss. Since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, feelings of isolation have become more widespread and many people have begun to talk more openly about loneliness. Now more than ever, we can all come together to let those affected by baby loss know that they are not alone and that we are all here to support them. I want to also thank the Scottish Parliament's cross-party group on women's health for helping promote, support and inform the campaign. Also the Holyrood magazine and Sunday Post for their heartfelt interest, compassionate, sensitive reporting, and of course the influence in bringing the issue to the fore, helping people across the country to discuss the issue and helping remove the stigma surrounding miscarriage. Finally, I want to thank Nadia El Nakla and of course Hamza Youssef for sharing their story. Nadia, who also works for me, has been an inspiration to many in sharing her heartbreaking story and has been a catalyst for me sharing my own story of miscarriage and for getting involved in launching the Changing Miscarriage Care campaign. All have been so helpful in raising awareness of the issue and giving people the safe space they need to discuss their experiences. The response has been overwhelming. Since the campaign launch, so many people have got in touch with me directly to share their experiences. Mary, who's 72, first miscarried 54 years ago and still grieves and cries to this day. Or Karen, who miscarried during lockdown and had no one with her to support her. Or Leslie, who suffers from ongoing mental health challenges after her miscarriage. I've been there and can relate to so many of the stories being shared by women. By opening up about our own experiences, I believe we can create the supportive environment women need and deserve. Women should never be made to feel that they can't speak about those experiences. And the recent outrageous treatment on social media of Chrissy Teigen and her husband John Legend after sharing their story of losing a baby is another reason this campaign is so important. We need to remove the stigma and create a culture where women can speak freely without fear of ridicule. We also know that miscarriage can have a devastating effect on men. However, for a variety of reasons, many find it difficult to get the support that they need. Many men report feeling like they should put their own feelings aside and be there for their partners at a difficult time, or feel guilty for also having feelings of loss. Much of this, of course, stems from the perception that miscarriage, pregnancy and fertility, all of it, are primarily women's issues, not men's, and this is something we also need to change. While recognising the very good work of the hard-working staff in the early pregnancy units, there is a need for more consistent care across Scotland, so the campaign has some key aims to improve that, including the development of care packages tailored to 1, 2 and 3+ miscarriages, which provide an appropriate individualised investigation and management care plan focused on the woman's needs. Offering progesterone when bleeding in pregnancy where that's clinically appropriate. Improving access to an early pregnancy unit through strategies to facilitate a 7-day service nationally. Increasing the capacity for early pregnancy scanning through training and diversification of scan practitioners, and embedding counselling services in early pregnancy units, as is the case with IVF, and of course, importantly, the follow-up after miscarriage. In conclusion, Deputy Presiding Officer, these are all points the campaign will take forward, and I look forward to hearing the Minister's response to them. However, before that, I'd also like to put on record my thanks to the Minister for Public Health, Joe Fitzpatrick, for attending the launch of the campaign, where he pointed to a great willingness on the part of the government to take these aims on board. It really did feel like we were pushing at an open door. The support here today from colleagues across the Chamber and, of course, across Scotland shows us that there is a need, a willingness and support to end the stigma around miscarriage, and by working together to provide the care and support needed, I think we can bring that change here in Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Robertson. Can I remind members to press the request to speak button if they wish to speak in the debate? I can now therefore call Emma Harper, followed by Brian Whittle. Ms Harper, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, for reminding me to push my button. I welcome the opportunity to speak in this debate today, Changing Miscarriage Care in Scotland, and I thank my colleague Shona Robertson for her contribution and for bringing this debate to Chamber today. I absolutely echo the points that Ms Robertson has made, and I will touch on some of the key aims that she has outlined as well, so that we can raise awareness of the care that needs to be changed and provided for women experiencing miscarriage. In preparation for this debate, I read a lot about the experiences of women and couples who had experienced the loss of a baby, and I reflected on the time that I worked in California, where myself and my colleagues engaged with empathy and sympathy when caring for women who had experienced miscarriage. These were women who needed a procedural intervention following their miscarriage. And even that in itself added to the trauma for people who were preparing for a new life with their newborn. The distress, the despair, the emptiness conveyed meant that at many times just a quiet hand-holding and reassuring hugs, and just being there was often what was helped. However, thankfully in Scotland the care is available and it's a bit better, but obviously we have some issues that need to be addressed and things that need to be taken forward. A miscarriage can have profound emotional impacts, not only on the woman, but on her partner, her friends and her family. And although there are specific NHS processes, including support groups and bereavement groups, bereavement care, I should say, additional assistance can also be of benefit and carried out. Simba is a charity formed in 2007. And it operates across Scotland and also in Dumfries and Galloway, and it's been carrying out exceptional work to support families who experience baby loss. This organisation helps bereaved parents by providing memory boxes, support groups, family rooms and trees of tranquility, where parents can dedicate a leaf to their lost child. The memory boxes include small knitted teddies, butterfly charms and other items, and there's also room for other memories to be added. The Simba charity has created 3 different sizes of boxes depending on the gestation of the loss. And I'm aware through my own case experience how much these boxes can mean to families who have gone through the tragedy of a miscarriage. The boxes, along with events such as a Wave of Light celebration, which happens on October 15th, were all the celebration means that they can have a candle lit and be displayed, which also helps raise awareness and remember the loss of their unborn baby. Raising awareness addresses the campaign aim for open conversation and breaking down the stigma of miscarriage. In Dumfries and Galloway, there has been a great deal of work to raise awareness of the devastation that a loss can bring, and the fundraising that has been created by Lauren and Chris Brideson means that a tree of tranquility will be brought to the Crichton campus in Dumfries and Galloway. A bereavement, a baby loss awareness committee was formed by Chris and Lauren Brideson. Along with other committee members, they have raised £27,000 towards bringing a tree to Dumfries and Galloway. This couple first received their Simba memory box when they lost their daughter Taylor. And since then, they experienced a further 4 losses, including their son Robbie, who lived for just 6 hours after being born prematurely in March 2019. And so the number 2 aim that in Shona Robinson's campaign says that investigation after 1 loss rather than 3 needs to happen. And I think that's quite right, and I support that aim too. In Dumfries and Galloway, there is no date for when the tree will be in place, but 90 leaves have already been sent to parents already, and they want to add their memories to the tree once the site has been secured and the tree has been planted. I want to put my thanks on the record to Lauren and Chris and all other community members for their tireless work and for the people of Dumfries and Galloway. Presiding Officer, in conclusion, I welcome this debate and I look forward to the aims of Shona Robinson's campaign to be put into place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I call Brian Whittle to be followed by Kenneth Gibson. Mr Whittle, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I add my congratulations to Shona Robinson on securing time in the Chamber to debate such an important ongoing issue. And I should also start with declaring an interest in that my daughter is a midwife. Now, I was privileged to join a Zoom call that was hosted by Ms Robertson on this topic, which I thought was a really excellent open discussion around the tragedy of miscarriage. And she just reminded me there, actually, which I want to mention, is Nadia's story, which I thought was really hard to listen to. It was important to hear, and I thought she was incredibly brave to do so. What is so surprising is the number of families that this affects. And the reason it's so surprising, I think, is because it's not openly discussed, which is why we have this debate today and why it's so important. It gives us an opportunity to help shine a light on the subject. And I thought it was quite interesting reading Shona Robinson's motion that she used the word stigma in reference to miscarriage, and it's not a word I would have used, quite honestly, in connection to this issue until I heard it in the recent Zoom meeting. I thought surely it can't be a stigma associated with such an unfortunately common condition. I think the overwhelming consensus of those suffering that there is a stigma problem, and I thought about it. And it does raise the issue, rather tentatively, I have to say, Deputy Presiding Officer, about the man in the equation and the fact that he is likely to be the main support for a woman who have suffered miscarriage, and that we menfolk may not be the best equipped to have this responsibility, and that we may need some help in this regard too. So fortunately it was taken in the way in which it was meant on the call, and I was informed then that there are organisations who indeed offer that kind of support to the menfolk as well. You see, Deputy Presiding Officer, you may be surprised to hear that us men are not necessarily the best at accepting that we may need help and then asking for it. After all, Deputy Presiding Officer, we are man the hairy hunter, therefore we can show no emotion or weakness. However, we may not have to go through the physical and emotional trauma that our partners go through in losing a child in miscarriage, but lose a child we do nonetheless. And then we also have to watch the suffering of our partners post-miscarriage, often feeling useless and awkward in our ability to do something about it. So while I completely recognise that it is the woman who has to deal with the physical and emotional trauma in the main, the person who is charged with supporting the woman through the devastating effect of miscarriage will almost certainly also be suffering, and they may need a little bit of help and guidance as well. I think the other people in this discussion should be the caregivers, the midwives, the health visitors, who have to inform and care for those women as they go through a miscarriage. I said at the time that those caregivers would like training in giving post-miscarriage guidance and advice, but in the main, the barrier to delivering that part of the service is time. There's often just not enough time to give the help that they want. What is more, given the type of people that these medical professionals are, dealing with couples who go through the tragedy of losing a child, whether in miscarriage or during birth, will always affect them. After all, Deputy Presiding Officer, They're in the profession to help bring life into the world, not to put too fine a point on it. So, Deputy Presiding Officer, I recognise that most speeches today will quite rightly focus on the woman who has tragically lost a child. But I thought I would take the opportunity just to highlight that although the woman is the one who is by far the most affected, there are others from whom this issue will affect, and in doing so, I beg forgiveness from the ladies in the chamber and who are watching at home. With that, Deputy Presiding Officer, I will close my speech by once again thanking Shona Robertson for bringing this debate to the chamber, and I hope it will help to highlight the issue and lead to a much bigger discussion around the country. Deputy Presiding Officer. Thank
you very much, Mr Whipple. I call Kenneth Gibson, followed by Monica Lennon. Mr Gibson,
Thank
please.
you, Presiding Officer. And I wish to add my congratulations to Shona Robertson for securing valuable debating time on this important matter, a very personal one to her and many colleagues. Presiding Officer, at least 1 in 5 pregnancies ends in miscarriage, and although miscarriages are the most common complication during pregnancy, their true scale is unknown. We do know that last year over 4,600 women in Scotland required inpatient treatment for a miscarriage, in a year when there were just over 51,000 live births. Yet because many women may not recognise they've had an early miscarriage, the real figure is likely to be much higher. My first wife Linda lost a baby at 13 weeks and the doctor could provide no reason or explanation. My second wife Patricia lost a baby at 8 weeks and another at full term, although the latter was due to undiagnosed preeclampsia. My mother too suffered from 2 miscarriages. Her sister, my twin sister, and my father's 3 sisters each suffered at least 1 miscarriage, and none of these 5 women ever gave birth and enjoyed their own baby to love, cuddle and raise. Unfortunately, miscarriage remains almost taboo in our society. Women and their partners are simply expected to get on with it. If mentioned at all, hurtful phrases like, "it's just one of those things," or "it's nature's way," are too commonly used and further aggravate the pain of bereaved parents. As a result, countless mothers suffer in silence and don't share the physical and emotional difficulties they endure as a result of their miscarriage. Too often we fail to properly empathise with the profound psychological impact pregnancy loss can have. In some cases, it leads to or exacerbates existing mental health problems, including post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and depression. As a society, it's our duty to talk about miscarriage and break down the stigma that still exists. I therefore welcome today's motion's aim of breaking the stigma surrounding miscarriage, particularly as it coincides with Baby Loss Awareness Week. This event from 9th to 15th of October gives bereaved parents, their families and friends an opportunity to unite with others across the world to commemorate their babies' lives. Although the experience of pregnancy loss is unique to each person, we must ensure women and their partners are listened to and given the support they need. Psychological support needs to be of central importance, and signposting to counselling services enhanced to ensure parents and the information and help they require. Recovering from the physical and psychological impact of miscarriage and finding a way through the painful experience can be a long journey. The profound impact the pandemic has had is likely to have increased the isolation many bereaved families face. As difficult as grieving for a lost child is, finding the root cause of a miscarriage is often vital to the healing process. Yet currently, women are only tested to discover why they've had a miscarriage after suffering pregnancy loss 3 times in a row. It's therefore clear that despite good services, improvements can and must be made. With only half of Scotland's hospitals having specialised early pregnancy units, we need to ensure every woman has equal access to services and provide an individualised care package tailored to each woman's specific needs. More research is clearly necessary. Half of early miscarriages are due to curable underlying causes rather than chromosomal abnormalities. I therefore applaud the fantastic work of charities like Tommy's, which undertake vital research into pregnancy loss and premature birth. In 2016, Tommy's opened the UK's first dedicated miscarriage research centre here in Edinburgh. And recent research has found that for women who suffered 3 or more previous pregnancies, a progesterone treatment increased live births by 15%, potentially resulting in saving 700 Scottish babies each year. Caffeine should also be avoided in early pregnancy, as well as alcohol, of course. Presiding Officer, I commend the launch of Changing Miscarriage Care. Not only does it aim to raise awareness of an issue too often kept quiet, also campaigns for necessary improvements of care, treatment and testing provision across Scotland, as well as funding vital research into miscarriage, stillbirth and premature birth. My family greatly misses the loss of so many children not born to my twin sister, my second wife and indeed my 4 aunts. And I would hope that many other women and their partners in the years ahead do not have to suffer what my own and many other families have suffered over many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call Monica Lennon, to be followed by Alison Johnson. Ms Lennon, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I want to begin by paying tribute to Shona Robeson for bringing this motion to the Chamber tonight and for all the work that she has done around the Changing Miscarriage Care campaign. It's difficult to talk about a personal experience, but especially one that is surrounded by so much taboo and stigma that we've heard colleagues speak about tonight. So I want to say thank you to Shona Robeson for the very personal commitment that she has made to this campaign. And I was pleased to join the virtual parliamentary launch of Shona Robeson's campaign recently, and it was great to have the Minister for Public Health there, and I'm pleased to hear again that there is an open door, and I feel like it's a campaign where we really can get a good outcome for the women who need that. And just on Friday, I chaired the cross-party group on women's health, and where we came together to discuss this very topic, and actually the CPG unanimously decided that we would endorse this campaign. We're writing to the Minister to let him know that and to ask some questions, but it does feel like a very positive campaign that everyone can support. And really grateful to the CEO of Tommy's, Jane Bruin, that Shona Robeson has mentioned, and of course to Nadia El Nakla, who's not an MSP. She can't be in the chamber to talk about this, but I hope as many people as possible get to hear Nadia's story. It's not about listening to a sob story that we can all sit and cry about, although it is very moving. But what I think is really powerful about Nadia's campaign and her contribution is it's about the changes we can make, particularly around prevention. What are the advances in medicine and treatment? What are the differences that we can make? And I hope that that's something that the Minister will take on board. There was a debate in Parliament at the end of last year. There was a motion by James Dornan on easing the burden and pain of miscarriage. And in his motion, James Dornan talked about taboo. So I won't repeat all the points of that debate, but I'm pleased that we're back again to make sure that this is not off the agenda. And when I co-founded the cross-party group in women's health back in 2017, actually encouraged by Kenny Gibson to do so, that was out of an awareness that there are so many issues around women's health that remain taboo, and that shouldn't be the case in 2020. So it's good that we're all here again to make some progress. Miscarriage does remain one of those issues that people really struggle to talk about, sometimes because people don't want to put their foot in it. It's not that they don't care, but they just don't know what to say. And in Scotland, with around 1 in 4 pregnancies ending in miscarriage, stillbirth or premature birth, this is not a niche issue. So we all have to be part of the conversation. And in terms of the Changing Miscarriage campaign, it sets out very clearly what we want the government to do, what we want health boards to do, and importantly, what are the outcomes that we want to see, the improved outcomes for women in Scotland. So again, I'm happy to give my full support to the campaign. It's good when people in the public eye, like Chrissy Teigen and John Legend last week, speak about their experience, because it makes it easier for others to do so. You don't have to speak out about your experience, but it helps people know that they're not alone and support is available. And others have spoken importantly about the role of fathers and partners, but like we touched on at the CPG last week, not every woman going through pregnancy and miscarriage and baby loss has a partner or has a husband, so we have to remember that too and make sure that we are inclusive. I've briefly talked about prevention. I think what Nadia and Shona Robeson have said about progesterone really needs to be explored, and I look forward to the Lancet papers coming out later in the year. And I also long for a day where we don't need to have campaigns like Pregnant Then Screwed, which is about trying to end the motherhood penalty. There's so many barriers facing women right across Scotland, right across the world, and hopefully by having debates like this, we can become a more progressive society and make it a bit easier for the women, for future generations. So thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. I call Alison Johnson, to be followed by Beatrice Wishart. Ms Johnson, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I too would like to thank Shona Robeson for bringing this issue to the Chamber today. I'm going to confess that I have forgotten to put on my Changing Miscarriage Care badge, but that in no way diminishes my wholehearted support for the campaign, so thank you. I too attended the cross-party group on women last Friday, and I heard the personal and emotional stories of women who've experienced miscarriage. And as the motion notes, and as colleagues have discussed, there's still a great deal of stigma surrounding miscarriage, and I think the fact that we're having this discussion in the Chamber this evening is a really positive step. You know, we've previously discussed in this chamber the culture of silence around women's pain and discomfort. And I think this is clearly impacting women who miscarry. Women are still frequently advised not to announce their pregnancy until it is safe. They're made to feel as though miscarriages should be hidden for fear of awkward conversations or perhaps less than understanding employers. So a miscarriage is an intensely personal experience, and it's a woman's choice whether she wishes to disclose it to others, but she should never be made to feel that she can't. There also must be more awareness of how baby loss impacts the partners of those affected. I know that Hamza Youssef has spoken openly about his feelings of helplessness when his wife, Nadia El Nakla, miscarried, and I commend him for his honesty and bravery in talking publicly about such a painful subject. We need to speak more openly about miscarriage generally, but also about its impact on relationships. And I too, Emma Harper spoke of the work of Simba, and I too would like to thank Simba for their excellent work supporting families who've experienced the loss of a baby. It's important, as we've heard, to remember that the level of distress a woman feels is not linked to how far along her pregnancy was. Everyone experiences miscarriage differently, and it can be a devastating loss whether it occurs at 10 or 20 weeks. We can't make assumptions based on a woman's age, how many other children she has, how many miscarriages she's had, or how far along she was. Research conducted by Imperial College London has revealed that 4 in 10 women reported symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder 3 months after the pregnancy loss. And the team behind the study say that the findings suggest women should be routinely screened for PTSD and receive specific psychological support. And while this was a UK study, there is learning here for Scotland. As a first step, counselling services should be embedded in miscarriage support. And as we've heard, at least 1 in 4 women will experience a miscarriage in their lifetime. That this is a relatively common occurrence amongst women has created the perception that some pregnancies are just not meant to be. Well, we need to challenge this. The charity Tommy's say that half of all early miscarriages are not due to chromosomal abnormalities, but have underlying causes that we can cure. However, under the current system, as colleagues have stressed, women will only be referred to a consultant once they've had 3 miscarriages in a row. Why? If half of all miscarriages are caused by curable underlying causes, are women forced to undergo such a deeply painful and distressing experience 3 times before they can see a consultant? And those who miscarry are more likely to have a preterm or stillbirth. They're also more likely to have cardiovascular disease and blood clotting disorders. So we should investigate why women are miscarrying sooner with a view to preventing further miscarriage. Women should receive lifestyle advice after 1 miscarriage and a referral for basic tests after 2, as by that point it's clear there's an underlying problem. And there must also be tailored support for those women who are more at risk, as well as a commitment to improve preconception health. Women must have access to readily available information on alcohol consumption, folic acid, supplements, smoking cessation, exercise and dietary advice, informing women about the risk and benefits of lifestyle choices and the steps they can take to protect themselves and their babies. This is essential if we want to improve maternal health. I appreciate that I'm over time, Presiding Officer, and I will conclude my remarks there, but wholeheartedly endorse the motion in Shona Robinson's name. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I call Beatrice Wishart, followed by Fulton McGregor. Ms Wishart, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. As others have done this afternoon, I too want to thank Shona Robison for bringing forward this important debate. I realise that I may repeat what others have already highlighted, but the subject's about loss of life and the devastating impact on women and their partners, so I don't think it can be repeated too often. The online launch of the Changing Miscarriage Care campaign was both inspirational and heartbreaking. Inspirational because of the passion amongst the attendees to change and improve the care and treatment currently offered to women who experience miscarriage. Heartbreaking because of the experiences we heard of. And I too want to pay tribute to the women who shared their stories with us. Those of us here today will know friends and family members who have had miscarriages, or indeed will have experienced it for themselves. It's estimated that about 1 in 5, or is it 1 in 4, pregnancies ended in miscarriage. But the reality is that the true scale in Scotland is unknown. The number of people receiving inpatient treatment for a miscarriage has declined from 7,546 in 1998 to 4,635 20 years later. But this incomplete picture hides the number of patients who are treated in the community or solely by their GP. There are many reasons why a pregnancy ends, and many women miscarry before they even know they're pregnant. But whether it's a one-off experience or multiple miscarriages, the impact can be devastating and last a lifetime. Some women carry around a guilt that it may have been something they unintentionally did that caused the miscarriage, even though health professionals will have tried to reassure them that that wasn't the case. The what-ifs and the guilt don't always disappear with the passage of time. So what and how can we make it better? Speaking about miscarriage and raising awareness is a start. It's taken a long time for society to be able to speak about how a woman's body works without any discomfort in doing so. So no more embarrassment when periods and sanitary products or childbirth or menopause are discussed. It's past time to remove any stigma associated with miscarriage and raise awareness of the emotional and physical toll it can have on the lives of women and their partners. At the campaign launch, we heard examples of good practice, and our aim should be to ensure equity across Scotland of quality treatment and care. But it's not only physical care. Other members of my party have repeatedly called for better perinatal mental health care. Many women who experience the joy of bringing home a new baby can experience poor mental health during pregnancy and afterwards, and we are now much more aware of the impacts that can have on all the family. So it beggars belief that someone who has just experienced the devastation of the unexpected end of a pregnancy could be sent home with a leaflet and no offer of counselling or even follow-up calls. Colleagues, we should and can do much better than that, and it's why I wholeheartedly support the motion today and the Changing Miscarriage Care campaign.
Thank you very much. Before I call the next member, can I say, due to the number of members still wishing to speak in the debate, I'm minded to accept a motion under Rule 8.14.3 that the debate be extended by up to 30 minutes. I invite Shona Robertson to move such a motion.
So moved.
The question is the debate be extended by up to 30 minutes. Are we agreed? We are agreed, so the motion is therefore agreed to. I now call Fulton McGregor to be followed by Mark Griffin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I start by thanking Shona Robinson for bringing this to the Chamber today and for her commitment to making improvements in this area. And, Presiding Officer, this is the second time that I've spoken in a debate about this issue. As Monica Lennon mentioned earlier, I spoke last year. I couldn't actually remember when it was, but I did speak in James Dornan's members' debate last year, so I apologise in advance to the official report if some of it is the same. There's a real taboo around miscarriage, and if the Chamber don't mind, I'll share my own personal experiences. And I can clearly remember the most recent time when it happened to my partner and I, because it was during my 2016 election campaign. So, you know, I remember it clearly with the two things running together. And it was one of those things when it happened that we didn't tell anybody about it. You know, we just had to get on with it. We didn't want to, you know, for it to have an impact on the campaign or anything like that. And I'll come back to the thinking around that, because I don't think that thinking was right. I suppose, unlike other people who have been in that position, I had, I suppose, what you could call the honour of being able to say something when I was successfully elected. And as part of my acceptance speech, I made a reference to what had happened. But again, it was very obscure. And thinking about what others have said in this debate and what I've learned since, over the 4 and a bit years since then, I do wonder often why that was the case. Why did I make that reference so obscure? Family and friends after it, you know, come up and obviously well before the days of social distancing, hugging me and shaking hands and all the rest of it. But loads of them actually said, what did that bit of your speech mean? What did you mean by that? What were you referring to? Stars for? And I just said, oh, you know, it's just something I wanted to make reference to. But then in the period after that, I started being a bit more open about it. But it really did strike me why I had done that. And when you hear people talking about it being taboo, even then, I wasn't able to address it as an issue. And the thing is, I actually raised that here in the chamber, so I know that much of that I've already said on the official report. But what I didn't say the last time, which actually links into that, because it's almost like a process of opening up, is that time was actually the second time that it happened to. So even the last time I spoke in here, I wasn't ready to talk about the first time. So, you know, it's really that there. So if that's me as an MSP, get the opportunity to speak in the Parliament, I think that, you know, we can easily see how this is a taboo subject. And the more I've spoken about it to people, the more friends, family and others have spoken about it. And from about 4 or 5 years ago, me thinking this was a fairly uncommon occurrence, I now think it almost affects every single person in Scotland, either directly or indirectly, and I'm actually quite convinced in that. Although I should say that, you know, and I know that everybody in the chamber will appreciate this, there is also some people that don't want to talk about it, and we need to respect that as well. And I've came across people in that position, so I've came across people who want to be open about it and want to hear debates in the chamber, and I've came across folk who don't as well ever want it to be mentioned again, for want of a better word. So that is something that we need to think about. Presiding Officer, I also want to talk briefly. I can see that I've actually used most of my time, but I want to mention briefly a fantastic charity which started in Coatbridge, Baby Loss Retreat. They first approached me not long after I got elected, and I've been supporting them since, and they've been supporting me. They're an absolutely fantastic organisation. The work that they do with constituents and actually people across Scotland is absolutely amazing. The specific purpose of their charity, as Brian and Julie Morrison, is to offer a break to couples who have experienced a miscarriage or a child bereavement, and they really believe there's a gap in this service. And some of the feedback that we've had from people who have used that service has been really amazing. They also do a lot of other important work around the registration of deaths that occurred before 24 weeks, work around burials, and they do, and obviously they're joining in the campaign this week. And if anybody's passing through Coatbridge on the M8, I won't give anything away, but have a look up at one of the wee bridges, and as you're going through the Coatbridge part, and you might get a wee surprise there. Is something that they're working on just now. And as Brian Whittle had said, the issue around men in baby loss, Brian Morrison gives a really important speech and presentations around that, and also speaks to men in a men's group. So some really important work. Presiding Officer, I'd actually love to go on talking about them, and I'm actually going to take the opportunity to apologise to both of them, because I spoke to Julie today that I've not spent more of my 4 minutes, now 5, speaking about them. I'm sure I'll get the opportunity to do so again, Presiding Officer. And again, I'll just close by thanking Shona Robinson for her work in this area, and I'm fully behind her campaign. She's a real champion here in the Parliament. Brian and Julie Morrison are champions out there in the community, and we need more. Thank you.
Mr McGregor, you must realise I have no intention of interrupting any of these speeches on such a sensitive and important topic. I should have said that earlier, but you might have gone on for 10 minutes. I call Mark Griffin, followed by Bob Doris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Like everyone else, I'd like to open by thanking Shona Robinson for bringing this subject to the Chamber today. When we go through tough times, we do look to others who've had similar experiences, and it's important for that reason, if not anything else, that we're talking about miscarriage in the Parliament today. And far too often, we're guilty of projecting an image of a picture postcard perfect life especially now in a social media-dominated society, and I'm guilty of that too. With a newborn baby at home, my social media timeline is full of happy, smiling pictures. Just now, to the outside world, it looks like my wife and I have had 3 happy, healthy children with no issues at all. And while we do have 3 beautiful, healthy children who we're thankful for beyond words, my wife has been pregnant 7 times. Stephanie miscarried early in her first pregnancy, a common story that we were completely unaware of, full of the joys and anticipation of becoming first-time parents. Stephanie started bleeding and cramping and phoned her midwife for advice. There's no way to arrange a short-notice scan, so we went to A&E, and she was given painkillers and told to come back if things got worse. We got an early scan the following week, which, looking back now, confirmed what everybody else seemed to know, but wouldn't say out loud, that she had already miscarried. At the scan, we were told pretty bluntly, there's nothing there, and just sent on our way. And it's only really then that you realise how many family members have miscarried too, but a strange wall of silence exists. And we were even encouraged not to tell anyone, not to talk about it. Stephanie had another much later miscarriage 18 months after, but because it wasn't 3 successive miscarriages, there was no follow-up with medical professionals to give answers or to get to the bottom of any potential issues. She then fell pregnant a 3rd time, and the consultant suggested taking aspirin. But then again, maybe not, as the science wasn't particularly clear, so it was just left to us to decide, take aspirin, don't take aspirin, see how you go. Our first daughter came from that 3rd pregnancy. Then another miscarriage, then a very premature baby, then a miscarriage, and then our son was born 5 weeks ago. Now, all of those miscarriages were devastating in themselves. The physical pain Stephanie went through, the grief, the loss, the guilt, the trauma, the helplessness, the anguish. I can't express it adequately. But I nodded to every word, crying silently at the story Nadia and Humza bravely told recently. But it isn't just restricted to that trauma. The happy baby news from other friends and family is overwhelmed by sadness for what might have been. And then there's the guilt that you feel for feeling sad about other people's happy news. There's the impact on every other pregnancy, the feeling that you can't be helped, you can't be happy, you can't be hopeful. There's no point in painting a baby's room, there's no point in buying a buggy or baby clothes or a car seat, because there's just so much fear and stress about losing another baby. There's a constant counting of weeks. 8 weeks in, everything's going okay. 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks. It goes on and on and on. It isn't just one pregnancy that's gone with a miscarriage. In your head, you lose every single one of them. Presiding Officer, I hope that the campaign being led by Shona Robertson will break down some of the stigma out there. It will send a message to people that they are not alone, and will lead to much needed improvement in the medical services around pregnancy and miscarriage, and I will do everything I can to support the campaign in any way. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. And the final speaker will be Bob Doris. Mr. Doris, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I want to thank Shona Robertson for securing this debate and for, as the motion says, opening a conversation and breaking down the stigma regarding miscarriage. That's why I wanted to speak in this afternoon's debate. I want to be part of that conversation. Myself and Janet have had 4 miscarriages over the years. We are absolutely blessed to have Cameron in our lives, and our 4-year-old son is an absolute joy. Others go through the pain and heartache of recurrent miscarriage and have not been as lucky as we are, so I always feel guilty speaking to today's debate when we've had that blessing and others never get that. I've never spoken about our miscarriages before, and I thought recently about why that was the case, and I suppose it's because whilst miscarriage impacts both myself and Janet, it's my wife who has to go through both the physical and the emotional pain and anguish of pregnancy loss. I will never know how it feels, what that feels like, I suppose. Like too many, I just block things out and I carry on. I do not suggest that's either healthy or desirable. It is, however, just an honest reflection on what I've done over the years. Ahead of today's debate, I chatted with Janet about our miscarriages. Janet said to me that our due dates for our first and our fourth babies for miscarriage were both around Christmas Day, and reminded me that our oldest child would be 8 years old if they'd survived through pregnancy. That really made me think. I can only imagine the emotions and feelings mums who experience miscarriage must have when due date anniversaries arrive each and every single year. I want to say a little about our experience. We have been for scans in early pregnancy. Scans where you think you see your baby's heartbeat, but it's maybe not as clear or strong as it should be at that stage. And you go back in a week or so, and it's obvious your baby, your pregnancy, is not going to make it. You feel numb, you feel helpless. Numb, I suppose, because it's as if it's not real, but it is real. And you're not sure how you're actually supposed to feel as a partner. Helpless because there's nothing you can do to make things better. Nothing you can actually do to help your partner. There actually are just no words that cut it. Changing Miscarriage Care is campaigning for practical change to the provision of miscarriage services in Scotland. I welcome the leadership and that of Shona's also in sparking those discussions. And I'd like to share another personal experience. Early pregnancy services in hospitals are often nearby or co-located with maternity units. I absolutely understand why. It makes common sense, of course it does. It is pretty tough though, as you're waiting to find out the worst regarding your early pregnancy, and all too often having that confirmed, to then see the happiness and joy that the birth of a new baby brings to a family at that exact moment you get your devastating news. Watching others arrive to visit new mums and babies, maybe bringing big brothers and sisters along to share in the joy that a new baby brings, that's as it should be. But that has an impact also on you and your family. It compounds the grief and the heartache. Never jealousy, never envy, but grief and heartache nevertheless. That makes me think about how we ensure there is sufficient emotional support and well-being for mums who lose babies in pregnancy loss, how we help and nurture mental health. I have to be honest and say I can't actually recall if we were offered counselling or any support at the point where we were informed of our pregnancy loss or where Janet miscarried. It was actually all a blur, quite frankly. But I'm pretty sure there was no follow-up support reaching out to us to find out how we were doing. I'm not sure what that should look like, but I just put that out there as something we didn't get. Something that happens when there's recurrent miscarriages, you don't get excited about a pregnancy. You're just worried. Mark Griffin mentioned about counting the days, just hoping that you make it. I also now feel guilty. I remember in the past I used to say to others who are maybe recently married, for example, is it not about time you started a family or maybe add another kid to your family? That would be a great thing. No one actually knows the suffering and history of that individual or couple when we make those points now, and I shy away from ever saying that because you never know someone's personal life and history and experience. No one who has a miscarriage is ever lucky, presiding officer. However, we are lucky to have our 4-year-old son. We count our blessings. I am also privileged to take part in this afternoon's debate and thank Shona Robinson for leading discussions on such an important issue, for creating the space for myself and others to share our stories and to shine a light on how we improve miscarriage care and do what we can for women not to have miscarriages in the first place. Thank you very much, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Mr Doris. And I call on Joe Fitzpatrick to close the Scottish Government. Minister, please. I'm sorry, could you put your microphone up, please? Oh, yeah, just have to move.
Apologies, Presiding Officer.
No, it's fine.
I'm grateful to Shona Robertson for bringing this motion to the Parliament and providing members with the opportunity to hear about her campaign and discuss this important topic. Can I thank all members for their contributions, but particularly those members who talked about their own experiences, and I know it will help many others talk about their loss. But as Fulton McGregor said, it's important to recognise that not everyone would want to or is ready to talk about their loss, and that should be respected too. Presiding Officer, along with many others in the Chamber, I attended the virtual launch of the campaign last month, where I heard about the aims of the campaign and listened to two interesting presentations from speakers, Jane Bruin from the Baby Loss Charity Tommy's and Dr Maya Al-Memar from Imperial College London. And most powerfully, I heard Nadia El Nakla and Kirsty speak about the loss of their babies. The campaign could not have come at a better time, as it coincides with a series of 4 research papers on miscarriage, which I understand will be shortly published by the Lancet, which Monica Lennon mentioned. I'm particularly pleased that this debate is taking place so close to Baby Loss Awareness Week, which begins on the 9th October and runs until the 15th. As Emma Harper outlined, raising awareness is so important. Every year, Baby Loss Awareness Week aims to raise awareness about pregnancy and baby loss across the world and invites everyone to come together, share their experiences and show their support for those who have experienced the loss of a baby, whether or not they have been directly affected themselves. And the Scottish Government building at St Andrew's House and Victoria Quay will be lit up pink and blue for the whole of Baby Loss Awareness Week. As we've heard, miscarriage affects 1 in 5 women before the 12th week of pregnancy, and it's estimated that 1 to 2% of second trimester pregnancies miscarry before 24 weeks of gestation. Kenneth Gibson put some figures behind the individual trauma to help us understand the numbers of parents who suffer loss. Presiding Officer, I think Mark Griffin painted a particularly clear and graphic picture that the loss of a baby, no matter at what stage of pregnancy, is a significant and traumatic event that affects many women and their families throughout Scotland, and I have heard just how devastating this is. I've also heard the barriers to support that taboo and stigma present for women and men, as outlined by Shona Robertson, Brian Whittle, and I think just about every other speaker in the Chamber this evening. Stigma that we really need to address. And I'm very clear that it is essential that women and their families who have experienced a miscarriage are provided with the right information, care and support, taking into account their individual circumstances. That care and support, where appropriate, must include further investigation and counselling. Presiding Officer, while health boards should ensure that every effort is made to provide high quality and sensitive care following a loss, we are aware that sometimes care can be variable, particularly for women who do not present at an early pregnancy unit and for women who present out of hours, and we continue to work with partners to see what more can be done to provide them with a more consistent support. In addition to tailored clinical care, health boards may refer women and their families to an appropriate third sector organisation such as Miscarriage Association, Held in Our Hearts, or others such as the one mentioned by Fulton McGregor, who offer counselling and advice to women and their partners following early pregnancy loss. In recognition of the need for women and their families to receive consistent, good, high quality and sensitive bereavement care, the Scottish Government is continuing to fund and support SANS UK to develop national bereavement care pathways for pregnancy and baby loss in Scotland. The pathway provides advice and best practice on bereavement care for 5 different types of baby loss, including miscarriage, and will improve the quality of and reduce the inequality in bereavement care provided to parents and families who suffer a loss, building on the good practice already in place across health boards. SANS UK have worked collaboratively with other baby loss charities, including the Miscarriage Association, Bliss, ARC, Held in Our Hearts and many others, and also the Royal Colleges, including the Royal College of Midwives and the Early Pregnancy Network, as well as bereaved parents and many other professionals in health boards to develop the pathway. 5 health boards, NHS Ayrshire and Arran, NHS Fife, NHS Dumfries and Galloway, NHS Grampian and NHS Lothian began working with the pathways in March this year as early adopter boards. And I'm delighted that the Scottish Government will continue to fund further work on the pathways, expertly led by Science UK, for at least the next 18 months. And I would like to thank them and all the partners involved in this groundbreaking, much needed and valuable work to ensure bereaved parents get the bereavement care and support that they need. Presiding Officer, we have also set up a working group chaired jointly by the Royal College of Midwives and Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists to look at the possibility of providing a non-statutory voluntary certificate for loss occurring before the 24th week of pregnancy, an issue that many parents have said would be really important to them. This work had been progressing well, but it was paused due to COVID-19, so we look forward to that work continuing. Furthermore, we recognise the significant and long-standing contribution of the Scottish Early Pregnancy Network, set up in 2003 by a group of professionals working in early pregnancy, whose members regularly contribute to national audits, government consultations and the development of high-quality patient information leaflets. The network provides expert input to the production of the Miscarriage, Ectopic and Molar Pregnancy National Bereavement Care Pathway, and the group developing a certificate for pregnancy and baby loss prior to 24 weeks. Presiding Officer, Beatrice Wishart talked about perinatal mental health, and we all know, I think, that mental health during pregnancy and after birth is hugely important. That's why the Scottish Government has committed £50 million over the next 4 years to improve mental health services for women and their families during this period. Miscarriage, pregnancy complications and loss can be devastating for families, as Shona Robertson outlined. And there can be many additional challenges around mental health following these traumatic experiences. And it's key that women and men who experience loss and trauma receive the right mental health support if needed. And that support is ongoing and available during future pregnancies. As part of this £50 million investment, the Perinatal and Infant Mental Health Programme Board was established to oversee implementation and improvement of services. This includes psychological support for families using maternity and neonatal services. Presiding Officer, in conclusion, I would like to once again thank Shona Robertson for bringing this important motion to the Chamber this evening. And as I said earlier, it could not have come at a better time, as it coincides with Baby Loss Awareness Week from the 9th of October and a series of 4 research papers on miscarriage soon to be published by the Lancet. I will consider the contents of these research papers and any recommendations made, and will consider these alongside the aims of this important campaign we've been hearing about today. I want to again thank all members for participating today, and I've listened carefully to what everyone has said, particularly those people who were brave enough to talk about their own personal experiences. I look forward to receiving the letter and thoughts from the cross-party group, and I hope I have this evening reassured the Parliament that I and the Scottish Government are firmly committed to providing the right support at the right time to women and their families who have sadly experienced a loss. I look forward to reading and considering the research papers from the Lancet once they are published, and continuing to work with Shona Robertson and the cross-party group and others on this really important campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate, and I want to thank all members for their contributions, which were extremely interesting. And I close this meeting of Parliament.